Hello again, this is Jonathan Moore with the Hometown Historian. I am here at Bindnagles Lutheran Church. I had filmed here before and coming back because I learned a little bit more information, like historical information of a connection between the most prominent family here at this church since its beginning, its inception, called the Early family. And it was just a cool connection. It's a connection to one of our greatest generals in the history of our country, and also eventually one of our presidents. I had talked about I wanted to stop up here again to do the upper cemetery, if that's what you want to call it. It's down at like the church grove, and just see what there is to see. But I'm going to go back over here, and we're going to check out the part of the cemetery that has the Early family. And I'm going to see if I find the individual who eventually would be part of the ancestors of this individual, and I'm going to see if I can find her father. So and then we'll do that information there, and then we'll walk down to the upper cemetery and see what we can see there. So we'll see you in a second. So this here is not Thomas Early, but I'm assuming this is maybe the first member of the Early family, and it has that O-H-R-L-E spelling. The German spelling of, like, there's a mall fair in here too that was a Revolutionary War event. It's spelled differently. Just some of that stuff is just spelled. He's the son of Johannes Early, son of Thomas and Margareta Early, Württemberg, Germany, January 9th, 1724. He died in 1796. He arrived in Philadelphia, PA on ship Brothers. August 24th, 1750. He came to Reading. He married, I believe that's Suanna Brubaron, 1753. She died 1754. Left one son, Christian. He married Regina Silent, 1756, and had 9 children. Drew was a member of this church, 1932. Anyways, he's the first one, because Johannes is usually, I guess it translates as like John. Oh, and there it is, actually, for right, or that's Johannes Early. And he was a Revolutionary War vet as well. But so we're going to go over the section that I believe the Earlys are in, where Thomas Early would be buried, maybe over here, maybe in this section too. So, but we'll talk about, regardless, the family connection to one of our presidents of the United States and one of our greatest generals. It's a pretty cool story. I just happened upon it. I didn't really think of it a whole lot after the fact. And then I also bought a historical book on Palmyra from Ralph Watts at his store, and it had the story in it, because I had talked about when they built this current church in 1803, there was over 400 individuals that gave to the church. They did it. A lot of them did it in 3 payments. Some of it was rather small. Some of it was, rather large gift, but all but 12 paid the entire amount. And one of them was an individual that he actually moved with his sister, who married this individual that is the forebear of this president. They moved out to Kansas, and the reason he didn't make the rest of his payments because he moved out to Kansas and sort of forgot about it. So, but let's see, there's some Earlys over here. I see a Catherine Early, and this is the Early with the E. Eventually they went to without the E before the Y. But he is married, or he is buried here, Thomas Early. The father was her brother, who was, I guess, a Thomas Jr. He went out. I think that's right there. I see Thomas. And I believe that is him. And we will talk about, there he is, Thomas Early. Or actually, maybe not. It's Thomas Getz, sorry. got sort of excited there for a second. Here's a Christina Early. She's the wife of Thomas Getz. There's a Widener. Now, we'll keep on looking here, see what this stone says. There's one more there as well. That's not it either. Same, that one's a little bit behind the bushes there. Just make sure it's not an early. It's an early, but it's a William Early. So that's probably one of the sons. And those smaller stones are usually children that died very early in life. That's an early, but I can't tell. Well, and there's another one as an infant. Well, I'm going to tell the story here. So Thomas Early had a daughter named Anna, and she fell in love with a man named Peter, and his last name was Eisenhower. So you should know where this is going now. And a bunch of you probably figured it was Dwight D. Eisenhower, but they moved out to Kansas because he felt like that would be a place where he could do very, very well. And so he moved out there, and she went with him, and then her brother Thomas went with them, and he was one of them that didn't fulfill his 3 payments. And but anyways, eventually from Anna and Peter came Dwight D. Eisenhower, our 34th president and the supreme commander of Allied forces in World War II. So it's pretty cool that you have a connection here, you know, right near home. You go out here and something that you're not aware of that exists. And you know, and I talked about it before, in this cemetery there's a lot of open space. A lot of this is most likely there are graves here. It's just a lot of stones get destroyed. You see some of these. We got a kitty cat coming up here. What's your name, kitty cat? Meow, meow, meow. Are you a friendly kitty cat, or are you the protector of the graveyard? This is a wild kitty cat, protector of the graveyard. So we're gonna walk down to the upper cemetery, if you want to call that. It's actually, they have a grove there where, and I'm gonna stop at this again too, because Palmyra is right down the road. And this is Dr. John Palm. He was the founder of Palmyra. It was originally called Palmstown, and then eventually it became Palmyra. But he lived from July 25th, 1713 to April 25th, 1799. So it was pretty cool. We found that the last time we did this. A lot of Revolutionary War vets here. A really, really beautiful church. They have very unique features here in the church. It's the only Lutheran church in Lebanon County that has, I guess it's called a sounding board, and it also has, I guess it's called a wine table. So the preacher is actually in the very middle of the sanctuary, and it actually has like a upper area that you can go up some steps and go and stand up there or sit up there and watch the service. But it's a really pretty church, and they still have the original communion, silver communion set from 1745. So it's a pretty cool history here at Bindnagles. And just really like the brick, the way they laid the brick out. It's like that. There's some really unique features about that as well. It's just such a beautiful building. But anywho, so I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to go down to the upper cemetery at the Grove and see what we see there. Thanks, everybody. Alright, so here we're heading over. Oh, cool, there's a great blue heron that just flew off. This is the swatty. Ouch! I don't know what I just stepped on. But this is the swatty right over here. It's just really pretty grove. Like the church that I live across from St. John's, they also have like a really pretty grove. But this has the little creek that comes down this way. I'm really honestly not sure what this is. I don't think this is Quittapahilla. Pretty certain that's not. But it's one of the tributaries that goes to Swatara Creek. But Swatara Creek goes along here, and I'm sure this was you can tell this was all flooded over because we had that Ida that came through, and that was pretty brutal. The Swatty is one of those creeks because it has so many tributaries that come up from like Schuylkill County or down from Schuylkill County. It just, when it overflows, it really overflows. So I'm gonna head over here. Like I said, this is sort of their pavilion and grove that here. I'm not really certain how old this part of the cemetery is, but I figured it'd be cool to visit and talk about that little bit, the connection between the Early family, which is the prominent family here, and talk about their connection to Dwight D. Eisenhower, our 34th president. So this, I believe, is a Civil War vet right off the bat. So even this down here or up here has a, and I always like when you can read these really well. This is a William J. Campbell, 53rd Regiment, PA. He died in 1908, and that's Civil War. It was the Grand Army of the Republic. They have those little bronze badges that they are little plaques. There's a couple stones here that look pretty old. I mean, it's early 1800s. Maybe not. It says 1887 when they died, so it looks a little older than it actually is. But I love some of these that have the white yet. And a lot of these are in really good shape. This will actually be quite cool because you can actually read the stones, because a lot of times you just can't. There's a Baker there. A few of these smaller stones, they were usually children. And here, this wasn't it. They weren't a child. They were born 1824, died 1889. Has George Long and his Christina, wife of George Long. Said born 1829. I'm sure she's still not with us, so she passed away at some point. Now, this is cool. These people's last name was Shakespeare. To be or not to be. Gone to sleep, what it says at the end. Oh, this is a child. Mary A., dad of John H. and Kate Shakespeare, born, that's odd. He couldn't have been, I must be reading that wrong. Because it says dad, it looks like it says dad, but it's got to be something else. Sort of different. Cyrus. There's another George Long. Couple George Longs. Yeah, the tombstones after the Revolutionary War sort of took on this shape. They're just sort of, sorry for there's a lot of shading because I got the sun shining right down on me here. There's one that he's born 1794, passed away 1876. And as his wife, she died in 1870, was born 1800. You never know what you're going to find in some of these places. You think, yeah, oh, this is cool. It's a Gerbridge. When we had been over at, yesterday I was at the Walmer church in Indiantown Gap, which is not really that far away from here. Leah M Gerberich, wife of Penrose Sanders. Leah Sanders, and then they say Nee Gerbridge is their, she's 1873 was born, and then died in 1897. She was only 27. This must, I wonder if this is, Jenny A Sanders. I wonder if she was, this is their daughter. Yeah, I bet you. Oh wow. I wonder if Leah Gerberich actually died because of childbirth, because here they have a Violet L Sanders. She was born July 14th, 1897. The mother died July 20th, 1897, so it was probably from complications of childbirth. That's what I would assume. And then it says here, something and sister's love. She was only aged 13 years, this Jenny A. Sanders. Sleep in Jesus, oh for me, may such blissful refuge be. Securely shall my ashes be, I think that's be, and won't the summers from on high. So that's probably, it's not B, it's something else that rhymes with high. That's, and there's another one that says asleep in Jesus. That's sad. That's really, that was one of those things that was all too common. And then the little girl didn't live that long anyways. She only lived like what, like 4 months. This is the one thing with, you do come, there's a lot of, like I've talked about a lot, Cliff talks about as well, that these are places of celebration of life, but there's a lot of reality to life as well, of what life was for people back then, and it's just really sad. That's probably a lot of these smaller tombstones or children that passed away. Number of individuals, Geeseman family here. I like how the stones are so like this is the cleanest I have ever seen a cemetery. Like the stones, especially stones that are 120, 150 years old. Normally they're not. Like, this is the easiest I've ever been able to read stones, and it's actually pretty nice to be able to see like the names. I wonder if somebody came up here and as a project they went and cleaned the stones, because a lot of times you have like this stuff on where the mildew or whatever you want to call it winds out. Yeah, here's a George W Shakepeare and his wife Catherine. Yeah, it seems a lot like you either lived to a decent age back then or you didn't live very long at all. It was just, it's pretty sad. There's a more recent stone. They died in 2002. Like I said, you never know with these cemeteries what you're going to find. You find some really interesting stones. You find this is, I really like, this has been maintained very, very well. It'd be nice. You see like different videos of like people that go around. There's a certain way to clean the stones. There's especially like individuals that go around and clean like veterans stones and stuff like that. It'd sort of be nice. I mean, that'd be something that I think I would really enjoy doing, is going around and cleaning these stones and making sure you can read these memorials to these individuals. There's some more Gerbridges over at that Walmart. They had that stone that was specifically made in memorial of the Gerbridge family. There's a number of them there. And once again, this isn't terribly far from there, but there apparently, I think it was, they said there was three brothers that had been moved over around the same time, and they then went all over the country to different places, but started here. A lot of immigrants back then, they didn't come into New York City, they came into Philadelphia, especially like the Germans seemed to come in there quite often, and then was settled here in what's known as Pennsylvania Dutch country. My dad used to speak Pennsylvania Dutch, and we would go to a barber out in Pine Grove, and all the old guys would speak Pennsylvania Dutch. I couldn't understand what they were saying. A lot of times they were probably making fun of me because I was a little kid, but you know, they were joshing me. They used to call it like you're joshing somebody. What that exactly means, I have no idea, but it's a good thing. It's fun. A little bit of teasing. Yeah, it's like I said, it's just nice to see stones that are this clean. I guess this is because this is what those stones, those ones that are all dark, this is what they used to look like when they were first. What kind of stone it is, I'm assuming marble, but not really sure. I had to look that up to know better what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But this is just really, this is a cool experience. I'm really happy I came up here. It's things like this, like you're going in, you're sort of like, I don't know what I mean. It's gonna be a somewhat newer cemetery, but it's actually, most of these stones are, you know, they were placed here before 1900. A lot of Hemperleys, a lot of Gerberiches up here, a number of different families, and a number of these families, Snaveleys, these are still families that are in the area. That's pretty neat, because it's the family, you have so much history here. That's why I want to go back to that Outwood Cemetery at some point, because I know there's quite a few of Millers in there, because I have to look. I have a book on Pine Grove. I think it was on their bicentennial. My grandfather was a major part of that, and he was one of, I guess, I thought he was one of the older sons, but he's actually, I think, one of the younger sons, because I didn't realize Frank was that much older than him. He was the gentleman that had gotten shot in a bar in Philadelphia. He's not playing the piano very well, but yeah. There were, I think, 11 children with Levi and Lavina, but I'm not really sure. I have Jacob Hemmerly in memory of. That's a really pretty writing. This is my rest, forever here will I dwell, for I have desired it. This is really, I don't know, this has, like, you have, most cemeteries have a serenity to them. I always talk about that, but this just up here is just really, I don't know, I'm fascinated that all the stones here are so clean. Like, normally you go in and like, oh, I can't really read this, but you can see this stuff. Like, it is clear. Somebody must have come up here and cleaned these, because, I mean, this is right out in the open. It's not like it has coverage. I mean, maybe partially they don't have trees over it, so you don't have the leaves and stuff like that. The acids from those things that could potentially damage the stones. But I mean, stones are they're just clean, and it's just awesome being able to read these. And I could show this to you, and you can actually really see this. Really, maybe I'm weird. I find cemeteries really intriguing, because it's just, the names interest me, you know, finding, it's just, it gives you a little bit of a look, I guess you could say, a little bit of a look into these people's lives, you know, when they lived, and, you know, the families that were here at that time, the different names. There's some Laudermilks. I knew a guy's name was Leroy. He worked at Lebanon Christian Academy. Guy was just an awesome guy. He's one of those people that you absolutely admire, and see, you can see like some of the differences in the spelling. Like that's Loudermilk with, has, instead of AUD, it's OUD. That's pretty. You get to see sort of how the spelling of the names change, and all three of those stones have like the hand shaking. It might be symbolic of God reaching out and taking your hand and taking you to heaven. Here's a couple more that are like that as well. Husband and child, farewell, I must go and leave you. Looking here I am, that shall your something ever be ever, then we shall, something about seeing us once again. Some of the poems that they have on these are a little harder to read because the writing is much smaller, and that has worn down over time. But a lot of really beautiful poetry on these stones as well. It's very poignant. Isaac Widener. I know in the early section of the cemetery there were a couple of Wideners. Isaac Widener, November 26, 1820, only a couple days away from my birthday. Died 1880, June 20th. Hebrews 13:14. Cyrus Ulrich, born 1830, died 1881. He was only, actually 1850, because he was only 30 years, 7 months. Hey, this is, I'll tell you, this is really, it's a neat, I like this name. Sarah Wolfersberger. I think there was a Wolfersberger in the other one as well, the lower cemetery, the older cemetery. And then you're starting to get into where newer stones after that. Yeah, there's a number more of these stones with the hands. I think those are the ones I was looking at earlier, the different spelling of Loudermilk. There's another Civil War vet, Levi Killinger. Really like this. I want to show, this is a newer stone, but I like to show this has a carving of Jesus. That's a really, oh, they passed away 2020, March 19th, 2020. She was a grub. That's really beautiful. As they end their beloved pets. He died in 2018. Vaughn, Robert, and Myra Jane. She was a grub. There's a number of other grubs that are buried here. Here's a Perry B. Grub. He died in 2004, was born in 1918, served in World War II. The U.S. Army Air Forces. He was a pilot, most likely. Another World War II. Paul A. Lutz. Ah, there's a guy that died just 2021. Earl H. Bupp. He was probably, I'm assuming, probably Vietnam. Could have potentially been Korea, but probably more likely Vietnam. And their son, he's only a little less than 2 years old, passed away. So even like more recently you had that happen. It's just one of those things that I can't imagine something that could be any worse for a parent is to lose your child. They have that line in Lord of the Rings where Theoden says no parent should have to bury their child. And they talked to the actor Bernard Hill. He actually came up with that line because I guess he had a friend who had lost a child, and he thought because of the loss of his son Theodred, he played the part Theoden, he thought it was very fitting to have that line, and it is. You know, no parent should have to bury their child. And so often it does happen, well more than any of us would ever want. But really is this upper cemetery is just a beautiful cemetery. It's very well maintained. Both are very well maintained. I gotta give kudos to the individuals that take care of the properties here at Bindnagles. Not only is it an absolutely stunning and beautiful church, but you know, they really honor the individuals that are buried here, and that's something that you can really appreciate. Yeah. Well, with that, we're gonna wind out ending the video. We're, I believe, at the last two stones here. Another France. There's a number of those up through here as well. But just a beautiful cemetery. This was truly a privilege to be up here and get to see this, and just I'm still like enamored with how clean the stones are, and just the joy of being able to actually read the names of these individuals. So kudos, like supreme kudos to Bindnagles Lutheran Church. You really have done these individuals honor. You've done their families honor. And you know, if somebody did come up here and actually clean these stones like this to have them be presented, or if they just naturally are this way, they got a secret they got to share with somebody else, because a lot of these stones, it's very hard to read these. And a lot of the cemeteries are very well maintained, but it's just, you can't always read the stones. So I mean, there's a little bit of disappointment with that. But anyways, this is Bindnagles Lutheran Church, the upper cemetery, if you want to call that. It's the cemetery up at the pavilion, their grove. And once again, I do say it a lot of times, if you do come and visit these places, please be respectful. These are places of solace. There are places of celebration as well, but these are the final resting places of these individuals who were beloved by so many. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye on this video, and we will see you on our next adventure. And hopefully next few days we'll be doing a bunch more filming. So thank you once again, everybody, and we will see you about town.